of us here. That is so amazing. Welcome to each and every one of you. Welcome to this session of Story Camp for Wellbeing as we unpack the film Adolescence on Netflix. We're so excited to be here with you. We're so excited to see all of you here with us. And without further ado, I would like us to. Wow. That last statement, it said it's crazy what your brain tells you to do when you're a kid. That's such a real and true statement because I mean, as with kids and their brains still developing, it's crazy the decisions they can come to. So, welcome again to all of you who are here. How many of you have gotten a chance to watch this film? How many of you are seeing it for the first time as we are sharing this trailer? I'd like to know, please let me know in the chat box. How many of you have seen it? Let me see a yes or or a thumbs up. I can see or watched. I see watched or scary. Yes, yes. There's a no. There's another watch. All right, all right. Watched. Okay, so I can definitely say that most of us have watched this show. And before we even get into the show, how are we feeling today? How was your day today? How are you? How are you right now? Me and I would like us to, in the spirit of the movie, to use emojis to describe how we are feeling. So using only emojis, please. Only emojis. Put in the chat box describing how you're feeling. I see Peggy. She looks like she's feeling cool. Please use emojis and let's see how you're feeling. Karibuni sana to all of you. Omar Salwe looks like is it tired, overwhelmed? I don't even know. Okay. Angry. We have some happy, we have angry. Wow. You know what? As I'm trying to read how people are feeling, I am just realizing how difficult it is to use the coded language, right? Because one emoji could mean so many different things. Now, even as after you've put in the emoji that describes how you're feeling, I need you to look at the emojis that the people are sharing in the chat box. How many of them can you identify what feeling that they are trying to describe? How many of them can you identify? I need you to just take a look around and tell me how many of them you can identify. I am seeing some chill, happy, sad. Chemutai says she can identify quite a number. I mean, that's great. Rosemary, are you shocked? Scared? Irene says almost all. And Josephine is happy, I'm assuming. Rashida says also quite many of them. Hey, you guys are doing amazing. So I think you guys definitely practiced for today. I'd like us to do another challenge, just a little bit to get to know each other. So I would like you, of course, to start by using your name. And I'd like you to answer the question that is showing on the screen. You're going to say, for example, my name is Wangari, and the example is my answer. So please name one person who influenced you as a teen, a platform that shaped you, and a belief that you held strongly, and a habit that defined your teenage years. For Wangari myself, I would say that the person that influenced me a lot as a teen was my best friend. A platform that shaped me was Facebook. A belief that I held strongly was that all I ever needed in the world was my friends to survive. And a habit that defined most of my teen years was staying up all night long. Please share yours in the chat box. Please tell me what's the one person that influenced you as a teen? What's the platform that shaped you? A belief that you held strongly and a habit that defined your teen years. This is really going to show our ages. So please just prefix it with your name and tell us the person, the platform, the belief, and the habit. Wanjiko is asking, what was I doing up all night long as a teen? This is why we are here. This is why we're here, Wanjiko. These are the discussions we're here to have. Well, maybe not about me personally, but let's find out, what are teens doing staying up all night? And I believe I might not be the only one who stayed up really late as a teenager. And I'm looking forward to seeing your answers. I'm still not seeing any on the chat box yet, but please tell me, who influenced you? What platform shaped you? What beliefs did you hold? And what habit defined you during your teen years? And for those who are saying there were no platforms, okay, you can answer the rest of the ones, but you can also, TV is a platform, I think, or we can even say church to some extent, right? Okay, some answers have started to come in here. I can see Nancy says the person is my dad. Platform is TV. The belief is women can do what men can do. And a habit that defined her was to hang out with boys because she lived in a boys' school. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Daima says the person is her dad. The platform is MiG 33. Hey, what generation is this, guys? Please help me here. MiG 33. The belief is life is good when it is understood, and habit is talking a lot. Wow, thank you. This person hasn't put their name in, but they said my sister's books because they wanted on Facebook. I had nothing to prove to anyone was the belief, and the habit was reading books. Okay, yeah, see, this is what teenagers do all night when they stay awake. They read books, for example. Another person is says they are unable to remember. Oh, okay, that's all right. Ivy says her older sisters were the people who influenced her. There were no platforms. The belief was life was great, and the habit is how do I escape my mother to get to know boys? Irene says, my friends, the platform was music channels. Belief was that I would have a great job if I worked smart in class. The habit was reading Mills and Boons. Hey, yes, that has unlocked a very core memory. um, Dr. Caro says influence, best friend. Actually, both of them not necessarily good influences. Well, that's at least you're honest. Platform, radio, or TV. We can guess your age. The belief is you believe they're very smart, and the habit was reading storybooks and hanging out with your estate friends. All right. Thank you, Teresa. The person, maybe, believe this too shall pass. That's a powerful belief for a teenager. Platform, Reader's Digest, magazines, and KTN. Hey, your ages are showing, guys. I love it. I love it so much. Nyakato says, my mom influenced me, no platform. Belief is that I needed to be perfect, deep in the books. Wow. Omasolo says the dad was the influence, platform was Instagram, belief was to prioritize striving to be a better person in life, habit, self actualization. Wow, guys, these are such amazing answers, and I wish I had time to read each and every one of them. But I'd like us to go through the answers that we're getting here. This answer is coming from our teenage selves, and I think I love the answers that I'm seeing here. To see the kinds of people who influenced you. What does that tell you about the kind of people who could be influencing the teenagers in your spaces? A lot of you have mentioned your parents. Other people have mentioned their friends. I think for me, it says that there's a chance. There's a chance that I can be the person of influence in my teenager's life. And I love to hear that. I love that so much. And I thank you guys so much for all your responses. I would like us to do another exercise. Please scan the QR code on the screen. If you're unable to, somebody will share a link in the chat box just now. And there's a question there that we would love you to answer. As you guys are scanning the QR code or clicking the link that is being shared in the chat box, I'm going to read 3 more responses as I give you time to scan the QR code or to click on the link that will be shared in the chat box shortly. Let me see here. I have Shalom. She can't remember the person. Platform was books, murder mystery ones. The belief is I can't get sick. That sounds so accurate. Habit was reading. Amelie says the person is her cousin. The platform is to read novels. No, habit was to read love novels. Platform, radio. Believe any interactions with boys equals pregnancy. I think there's a lot of people who held that belief. Rose, the influence of her teacher. platform was the books and music, and the belief was the sky is the limit. You guys, your answers are so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Have we been able to sign on to Menti? Have we been able to receive the link in the chat box? All right, let me share the link with you guys. All right, I have shared the link. Please click on the link. It will take you to menti.com. The link is in the chat box for anybody who's looking at it. Otherwise, you can scan the QR code on our screen. Feel free to scan the QR code. Once you click on the link, you shall be able to see a question. We're waiting for the presentation to start.
Stop sharing so that I can share the link.
There you go. All right. On your screen, if you have gone to menti.com, I think you can see somewhere where they are saying short responses are recommended. You have 200 characters. And the questions will start soon, I'm assuming.
Yes, it's loading.
All right.
Taking its time. There we go. You now can read.
All right. The question is, what stood out for you in the film Adolescence? If you've watched the movie, a lot of you said that you have. What stood out for you? What themes, what thoughts, what feelings, what phrases? I can see some here on the screen saying Breakfast Club, not watched yet, How Teens Speak, the Emojis Conversation, Troubled Teen. I haven't watched it, but from the trailer, it's how devastated the father and the mother were about the teen's action. That one is a given for anybody who's watched or not watched. That scene is heart-wrenching. A lot of you are still watching. How the cop reacts to his son and needs to reconnect with him. The trailer has left someone else feeling uneasy. The bit where the dad felt he may have been to blame for how his son turned out. Also, how painful the whole experience was for the family. We have sadness, devastation, shock, the emotions I am feeling. I'm feeling clueless about teenage communication, that adolescence can be messy, that teens are self aware through the awareness, though the awareness is misdirected. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm ready for the spoilers. I think we'll make it more interesting, with our spoilers, maybe the show just gets better. In fact, I think I would like to watch it after this conversation, just with the conversation in mind to see what it comes up. Somebody else says that the parents blame themselves despite having tried their best. Somebody said, I only watched one episode and I got shivers seeing a 12-year-old accused of murder. I have children that age and I wouldn't imagine what would get them there, and I can't wait to watch the rest. Wow. Somebody said they feel that there was a misconception what the parents knew about their child and what the peers at school knew. It's as if they didn't know them at all. The boy has coping issues and is going through a lot of peer pressure. Themes that came up for someone else here are turbulent emotions of teenagehood, the disconnect between the generations, and a growing unconscious animosity between the sexes that is deliberately perpetuated. Wow. That's definitely a really big theme that shows up there. Um, how I had no clue about the 80-20 rule, just like his parents. Yeah, I think a lot of stuff definitely was just coming up that we weren't aware of. The parents not understanding how they got there as a family, I think that really resonates with so much of us, especially when you're actually putting in the effort. Maybe I can read like three more. Um, The knife in question was not Jamie's knife, but his friend's. This shows how, as parents, we might not be aware what our children are carrying to school that they can even use to harm others. Yes, the raw portrayal of emotional struggles and the longing for connection, the themes of vulnerability and healing. Mhm. Watching him challenge the psychiatrist with such disdain, a 13-year-old posturing like a 30-year-old. That was also a very, revealing moment, yeah. Um, Someone else says reckless parenting. The child was too young to be out late that night. Um, I had never heard about involuntary celibacy and that whole conversation. There were anger issues, bullying, teasing, and the school also gave me shivers that the teachers were not in control and the boy was vulnerable. And how real does that feel? Like that could just also be the situation with our schools, with our teachers. And one last one is that two kids raised by the same parents, but turning out completely differently. Wow. Such amazing themes that are showing up. I think we'll read just those for now. Thank you guys so much for engaging, for answering those questions, just to get us started, to get the juices flowing into this amazing conversation that we would like to continue. Um, all right. I hope you can see my screen. Yes. All right. Amazing. So, before we jump into all this conversation, telling you what we thought, how we felt, what themes came up for us as Stowie Camp, who are we even, and why are we here telling you guys all these things? Um, Stowie Camp for Wellbeing is a hub of resources around children, parenting, mental health, family matters. That's what we are. We're a rich hub of all these things where you can come, you can find resources to better understand parenting, to better understand things around mental health. Here, at the meeting, we have a few of our coaches present. I would like them to just go on camera so that we can see them. And I think the first one is Jackie. I don't know if Jackie is here. If you are, Jackie, please wave at the people. Jackie is a parent coach here at Stowie Camp. We also have Elijah. Elijah, I can see Elijah. Elijah, please wave at the people. Elijah is also a children's coach here at Stowie Camp. We have Emily. Emily, are you here? If you could please wave at the people. Emily is also a parent coach here at Stowie Camp. We also have Halima. Halima, please wave at the people. Halima is a parent coach and a mediator here at Stowie Camp. I see Jackie now. Jackie, you can just wave at them. Thank you so much. And myself, my name is Wangari Mwangi. I am a children's coach here at Stowie Camp, and I will also be your moderator for the evening. I'm so excited to be part of this conversation. And the final member of our team who we shall be engaging in this conversation with is our founder and CEO, Dr. Caro. She's a parent coach and an author of an amazing book. Hopefully, we'll get to talk about that. I'd just like to give her a quick second to say hello so that you can get familiar with the voice. Hi, Dr. Caro. How are you?
Hi, thank you, Wangari. Good evening, everyone. It is just so exciting. We are already 130 here, and I know it's evening for some of us, it's morning, it's whatever time it is. Just thank you for honoring our call. We send out an invitation and you decided to come. So we are really, really grateful that you're here. So my name is Dr. Carol. I am the founder of Stowie Camp for Wellbeing. And I don't do this alone. I do it with these amazing coaches here. We are a community. I think at some point we say a little bit more about Stowie later, or I say now. Later.
You can have a minute, quick minutes.
Yeah, you said a quick second, and now I'm saying more. And you're the boss here, so you tell me what to do. So, as Tawi, we are like, actually, Wangari actually talked about it a little bit. We are a community of adults, whose intent is to create spaces for children to thrive, all kinds of children, all kinds of families to thrive. And we do it through different programs. We have parent coaching, we have children's coaching, we have camps, we have speaking engagements. We work with individuals, we work with government institutions, we work with non-government institutions, we work with schools, with churches, other religious communities, just providing the kind of resources that Wangari talked about. Such an honor to be here. Quick minute over, back to you, Wangari.
No, thank you so much, Dr. Caro, for taking a quick 2 minutes, maybe, but that's okay. I think it's the African way, unfortunately, for us. But thank you guys so much. It's so amazing to imagine that there's 130 people here, 130 intentional parents, I'd like to believe, who are here to have a really meaningful, heartfelt discussion about something that, I don't know about you, but was pretty scary for me to not just to watch, but to just imagine going through it. And then to add on the extra layer of that was in Britain, that was in the UK, okay? In Kenya, I don't know if it would have been any closer to that, maybe it would have been worse. Maybe you don't even know how it would have turned out. But if maybe you're here, you haven't watched the film, you're wondering what we are talking about. Who is Adolescence? What is happening? Why are we afraid? I hope you get a second to watch the trailer. If not, I hope you have sneaked a few minutes away from the meeting just to Google what the film is about. But worry not. Adolescence is just a film that features around the Miller family and their young son, who is 13 years old. His name is Jamie. And Jamie and his family are facing a family's worst possible nightmare. He's accused of murdering a classmate, and the evidence continues to pile, and the revelations that keep showing up in this movie are, I guess, what are a real shock. They keep finding out, the parents really finding out that they probably really don't know their kid. And I think also the downing realization of Jamie that he's in some real world trouble. Sometimes as a child you're in trouble, but this is not the same. It's not the same as getting into trouble with your parents. It's not the same as getting even suspended at school. This is being accused of murder. It gets very real very fast. We also get to see how Jamie's actions affect his whole family, in their community, in the place where they live, and a lot of other themes around teenagehood really come up in this film. Things around bullying and relationships. Um, yeah, so basically this is what we are coming here to discuss, and it's because it brought up all these things, and we are just here wondering. I mean, we are all raising kids in this digital world. What happens? What happens? How can I stop it from happening to me? I guess would be a really big question for a lot of us here. Um, but worry not, we are gonna get right into it. Dr. Kara, I hope you're ready. We're gonna just dive right in. We're gonna get into the first episode. We're gonna try and pack it in the themes that came up for us here at Stowie Camp while watching this first episode. Um, so the first one is that we are busy, and it's for a good reason. We must go to work. But then what? It comes with the counter side of maybe at times you're missing some certain things, or you're not available for certain things. And also that just takes us to the second theme of how easy it is to miss things with our teenagers, because we have a lot going on in our own lives, and sometimes it's not so it's not so easy to know everything that's happening in their lives, and that's pretty scary. But another, and I think a lovely theme that really came out of this first episode is that even in crisis, children will still reach out for their parents, even when there's emotional distance. I think the first episode really showed how Jamie's dad works a lot, so he's not home a lot. But when Jamie was given an opportunity to have an adult there with him, he chose his dad. He could have picked anyone else, but he chose his dad. There was still that seeking for connection appearing there. Dr. Caro, what do you think about these themes?
Yes, and we tried to pull out the main themes. There were so many others, but we wanted to see what will fit within the time that we are here. And you're right, we are busy. We are busy. And I think there's guilt that comes with being busy. As busy parents, you have to be out there. It's now it's even difficult to afford a one income, family. It's a two income family for those who are, parenting together in the same household. It's even worse if you're parenting solo, or if you're a single parent. It becomes even harder, and you're dealing with all these other things. So there's a lot of guilt that comes into that space. And you can tell even, of course, at the end of the movie, you see a lot of that guilt coming through. But the reality is, even that morning when the police came to arrest Jamie, the dad had just arrived home a few hours, and he's talking about how, business, they get more money during certain times, and those are times when maybe they're crucial for you to be home. And the other thing, then it is easy for us to miss a lot of things because we are away. What that does is brings guilt into our parenting space. It does bring guilt. And what guilt does, usually, it pushes us on both extremes. And the same child, the same parent, you find, because you are guilty, you are overdoing things. So you're letting your child off the hook. The little times, and even sometimes we have it with those parents who travel, it's even worse. You travel, you're away, you're with your child for just a few days. The few days that you're with your child, you don't want to fight. You do not want to fight. You don't want to talk about schedules. You don't want to talk about those things. You just want to have a good experience, because when you're away, somehow what sticks is all the times that we fought. And so there's the tendency to let your child off the hook on a lot of things. And these are conversations we need to have and to continue having. Why? Because there's a lot of parent bashing going on. And we are always just quick to say parents are too easy, parents are this. We need to acknowledge the reality, the socioeconomic realities that we are in, that are causing us to do the things that we are doing. And as we acknowledge them, then we say, okay, we have found ourselves here. So what do we do? And that is one of the things we really want us to take out. We found ourselves here. So what do we do? And the other thing that you said is, in crisis, children will still reach out for their parents. And that came out really, really very evident when Jamie was given the opportunity to have another solicitor who's not the parent to come through, but he still chose his dad. And we need to look at that as a ray of hope for us, because the guilt sometimes causes us to even push our children away without knowing. So I think one of the things that I would like us to just remember here is, no matter how distant, emotionally distant, physically distant, your child still craves your connection. They crave it deeply. No matter how far down you've gone, even in your in messing up the situation, or being away, I think it's important for us to know that we have a place to start, that our children actually, they long for a connection, even from an emotionally absent or a physically absent child, a place of hope. And as we do this, my invitation for us is just to reflect on how easy it is to miss our children's emotional worlds because of the busyness of life. Let's just acknowledge that kind of reality. And as we are doing that, I'm inviting us, because in this session we're going to do a lot of mindful exercises as well, because these conversations can push us to the edge in terms of just anxiety or fear and all that. And there's been a lot of fear already we are having here. So I'd just like us to take a moment and take a deep breath in and out, and just think about what negative emotions that are coming through just up to this point. And just take a moment to release. If you're a person of prayer, you can say a prayer. If you're a person of faith, you can release it, If you're not, you have your own ways of releasing and receiving. What would you like to receive in return? Would you like to receive wisdom? Would you like to receive courage to ask for help? whatever it is you would like to receive, just let's take a moment and receive that. And I know that with each episode, we also asked you to bring in questions. And so Wangari is going to highlight some of those questions. We're also asking you to put in the chat how you are experiencing this session, what questions are coming up for you, what aha moments you have, what spaces are you disagreeing with us. We love those spaces as well. They teach us a lot. So let's make this a very interactive space. Back to you, Wangari. Do you have questions?
Yes, Dr. Kara, I have loads of questions, and I'm pretty sure there are some more questions coming into the chat box. Don't worry, we'll get to those ones as well. As I was going through a lot of the questions, we picked out the questions that fit with every episode's theme. And some of the questions, well, an important question, Dr. Caro, to tell us here is, who are we as Stawicom? And why is it that we have the answers to these questions?
Someone actually asked us that question: who are you and why is it
Yes.
that you have the answers? I loved it. And I think that we've already talked about who we are, in terms of a community of adults seeking to just create spaces for conversations like this and to normalize them. Because what we don't acknowledge becomes something that is big, and in an unconscious way it becomes what triggers us when we're having issues with our children. So we are just a community that's creating a space to have this conversation in a way that is candid, a conversation like this. 2 weeks ago we didn't know we were going to have this conversation, but I got a lot of calls and a lot of tags of, have you watched Netflix, what are your thoughts? And I thought, let's throw in a conversation together. So that's who we are. Do we have the answers? Actually, no, we don't. Because we are a community, we are drawing from each and every person in the space to be able to support one another. We say it takes a village to raise a child, and one of our core values is co-creation. So we do have tools, we have a toolkit, and those toolkits may not be the answer for you in a certain season, but you might use it for another season. And whatever it is that we bring together, it's something that we want to be able to co-create together. So again, we are inviting all of us to be part of this community and engage in the different ways. So that's who we are, and why we do this is because we have passion for it. We are all of us have different experiences, whether in academics or in personal experiences. All of us are parents, and some of us psychologists, some of us are educators as well. So yes.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Caro. And just maybe to add on that is that we are also parents. I think I did not mention that as I introduced the coaches here, but they are all parents. And as parents, we resonate. We are going through the same things. We're going through the same challenges. And just like you, we are all qualified to be here and to have this conversation so that we can support each other as a village, like Dr. Caro said. Next question I'd like for you to answer first, Dr. Caro, is how easy is it to just miss stuff with your teenagers? Like, I live with this child every day in my house, but one day I just discovered that they're a completely different person. And as you answer this question, it brought me to a point of reflection of whereby if there was something I knew resoundingly as a teenager, was that my parents didn't know me, for sure. If you would have asked me at 14, at 13, do your parents know who you are? I think also my answer would have been not at all. So why is that? Why is it that we don't seem to know our kids?
Yeah, and it's different across different families and in different spaces, because one of the things I will say also is that with the kind of parents that we're having now, there is just that intentionality to connect with our children and to
Mhm.
know what they are up to. So we also need to acknowledge that there are those parents who are actually involved and they're intentional. But it is still possible not to know everything. Like for real, I because of this, I asked my son, so what's up with the incel? And he said it's so matter of fact. Oh, you mean the
Nonchalant.
You mean the red, what did you say? Oh, the red pill bros. You don't know about that? I'm like, this is in fact, it wasn't just red pill, the red pill bros. And it came out of his mouth so naturally. And I'm like, oh my goodness. He's 16. He dismissed it. He's like, that's for younger kids. So that's another thing. It's like me, I'm beyond that. So it is possible. It's possible. And I think the reality we need to invite into this space is we will not know everything about our children, no matter what we do. They will hide stuff from us for different reasons, because they are not ready, because they are afraid of how we will react, because they are figuring themselves out as well, because they don't know if it's even something that's bothering them. And I think, again, one of the things we do is normalize conversations and the struggles around parenting. So let's normalize the fact that our children will hide things from us. Now, can we do something about that? Yes. Like I said, there are many parents who are intentional. And again, it's to inviting you into this space to figure out, what can I be more intentional on, so that I create the kind of environment that my child can easily come to me. And that is just purely, we'll continue talking about this, but I will just say one of the tools that we use here is what we call conscious connection. We're very generous with our tools. And so we tell them, all of them, even in a free session. Conscious connection, basically, it's just figuring out time to connect with your child one-on-one individually, and focusing on something that they love and they enjoy. And it might seem like your regular, normal tool. I'm like, why is that even a tool? But conscious means you're fully present. Conscious means no distractions. Conscious means doing something they enjoy. Conscious means you really zip. If you discover something, you don't, in the course of that conversation, it's not time to attack at that point. Put it at somewhere at the back of your head and say, you tell yourself, we'll address this later. But just looking for that time for our children to be able to connect with them. So I think I've gone beyond answering your questions, have I? Back to you.
No, no. I think I like what you've said about connecting, and just to build more on that connection point, Dr. Caro. What if my child is like just quiet? How do you connect to a child who likes nothing and talks about nothing? And then every time you ask them a question, how was your day? Fine. Do you have a new friend? No. Like, what do I do to break them out of their shell sometimes? And, how do I even differentiate between my child being an introvert and my child being weirdly quiet?
Yeah. We really like to draw a line. I want to differentiate. I want that answer that tells me this is his personality, or tells me this is weirdly quiet. Or
Mm-hmm.
the words you have used, I'm just going to use them. How do we get them to break them out of the shell? And I'm thinking, why do we need to? It's their
Mm-hmm.
personality. It's who they are. And we can meet them where they are. I think the bigger question here, and especially for parents, is, what have you believed about a quiet personality? What are your beliefs around a child who is quiet? What are your fears around a child who is quiet? Okay. We talk about identifying the skills gaps. When we talk about discipline in our sessions, we really go into, how do you identify the skills gap that you need to train in a child? So I would ask us to turn that around and ask, what skills does this child need? Okay. What skills does
Mm-hmm.
this child need? Skills to be able to express themselves better. And as you think of that, you don't land and maybe send them to camp, in April, and expect them after camp. Now they have public speaking, confidence skills, and all that. But it's really creating an environment where you can connect with them at their level. You work through your beliefs around quiet child, and you figure out what are the skills that this child needs to be taught, and remind yourself that you have time. You have time. They're still young, and over time, they may never. They may never, quote unquote, come out of their shell in the way you see it, but you'll be able to identify the strengths that they have. I see this so much in the chat, Wangari. Do you have another question before we go to the chat?
No, actually, I just wanted to point out that sometimes, Dr. Kari, it almost seems like we want to just take out all the work out of parenting and we
Mm,
just want to pump out good kids without having to put in a lot of effort because it's a lot of work to consciously connect sometimes. And we're really trying to, there's no shortcut. I can't skip through that. And unfortunately, there really isn't. And I guess that's what this film is really showing, that ultimately it's not so much about provision, it's about connection, you know? And I love that. And the chat box is on fire, Dr. Caro. People are saying such amazing things. But you had also just said about the skills gap that kids have. And I just wanted to use that as just to let everybody, all the 145 of us here know that again, Stawi Camp is your resource center. Do you want to know how to train your children on these skills? As we go on, we're going to be inviting you to just sign up so that you can find out these specific sessions where we talk about adding more to their skill sets. And I would also like Elijah to just unpack the hot chat box for us. There's so many questions that came up in comments just through the conversations that we've had, so that we can go through those before we close episode 1. Good evening,
Absolutely.
Elijah.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Wangari. Thank you, Dr. Carol, for taking us through that stuff. I can for sure tell you the chat box is teeming. It's just simply because this conversation is very stimulating. Anyway, so there are just a few things that I've picked, but of course, we are still having some questions being dropped in the chat. But there's one that I think two guys probably asked. There's Nancy. I was asking why did the boy decide to choose the dad instead of the mom? That's one thing. But of course, I think there was something that was mentioned there by one of our coaches, Halima, but then we'll still go through it. And then, of course, guys appreciating the work and even wanting to know how they can engage with us in future, which definitely we'll need to give them the contact. So there's one who's also actually asking, what does it mean? Maybe I can run through the two or three, then we can handle that. If the additional ones, we can always tackle so that we ensure everybody, because I really love that the fact that we're engaging, which is very good. So that's one. Then there was the bit, what does it even mean to know our kids? That was Shayla was asking. What does it even
Mm,
mean to know our kids? I mean, it can sound very abstract, but then it can also be a very pointed sort of a question that needed some key direction. So I hope we can handle that. Of course, there was Irene was asking about what you said. Some of us don't even understand some of those pills. I don't even know it anyway, Dr. Carol. So I'm in
I
that
found out
category
about
as
it.
well. Yeah. Then there was Flo was asking, how do I deal with the lies and collusion to mischief by my children? So maybe let's try handle those three questions, and then we can, if they still, I'm sure we still have time, we can tackle the other ones.
all right.
Over back to you, Wangari.
Thanks so much, Elijah. Dr. Caro, and just on one of the questions that Elijah's pointed out, highlighted comment here would be when the lady asked the question about why he chose the father instead of the mother, there has been an unpacking of the conversation, a lot more saying maybe it is his view of females versus males that contributed. And so maybe you can also touch on that as you answer that question. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and I think you have again we see later the whole
Yeah.
toxic masculinity space that he has been engaged in, and the way he despises women based on what it is
Mhm.
that he had. And I feel like there was that part of him. He was just, I mean, he was almost obsessed about his father's approval, even with his emotional distance. And yet the mom is the one
Mm.
who was home even the most. And so I would tie it to that. I am here to learn. So let's also hear what other people have to say, because there's such great reviews that are out there as well. But that's what for me stood out. It's because of whatever he was already immersed in, and also still just that craving. I think at some point they said he thought, they were not talking with the mom. The mom said, I think he thought that when you went there, you would protect him. So maybe there was also just that hope. My dad will do something. My dad will do something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you allow, Wangari, it's interesting. I'll just probably want to read out what our fellow coach Halima did write down there. With regard to that question, it does not mean always that the boy is not connected to or love his mom. It could be just a stage of growth and emotional need of security at that moment.
Mm.
I think I mean, that's a very interesting perspective, really. It's
Mm.
not that, and the fact that we're not trying to say that the boy doesn't love the mom and probably favors the dad more, but it's just a stage at that moment, which is a very important aspect too. So that, otherwise we can always find ourselves beginning to judge our children, and you never know how it can go south. So I
Okay.
believe just understanding that they could be just going through a certain stage of growth and an emotional need, that sort of gives you a chance to really to empathize with them, to sort of
Yeah.
even feel what they're going through. So
Mm.
thank you so much, Halima.
Yeah,
And
thanks so much for that,
that's good. And
Elijah.
just allow me to read what Gashiri has written here also, so that it grounds us. But
Mm.
is it normal for him to choose his dad? Is it abnormal for him to choose his dad? Is that a problem? Why do we assume it should be the mom? Okay. So even those questions really speak into some of the biases we may have. And it's important for us to also put that in mind. I think I can see we're already 1 hour down. Wangari, can we just transition to the next?
No problem at all. So yeah, that was just the themes that came up from the first episode, and I'd like us to jump into the second episode. The second episode was titled, sorry, just give me one. There we go. Episode 2, titled The School. This was the episode where the policemen were able to go to the school. And now I think it is the episode where we really now get to know the other side of Jamie, the side that his parents weren't really familiar with. And then it's also the episode that really reveals a lot of what is in the cup of these teenagers, what's in the cup of the school, yeah? And the key themes that stood out for us were, for example, the school system, overworked teachers, there's a lack of collaboration and even a lack of compassion between the parents and the teachers. We are not, which is, I think, something that even shows here in our country. We're not really working with the teachers. It's almost like we are competing and working against each other and sabotaging one another. There's also lack of proper support systems. For example, in personal counseling systems, I think there's the girl who was killed, her best friend, when they tried to offer her some support, and she said she doesn't want to see another shrink just because of how not helpful some of those structures that we have in the school. Like, we have the guidance and counseling team there, but they're really not doing what they're intended to be doing. Then there's the language disconnect between the parents and the kids, where they have their own lingo, and there's a lack of patience from the parents to even try and understand that kid. He tried to take some time to teach his father what these languages are. I mean, what these things mean. And in the end, he still wasn't being patient enough to understand what it is that they were talking about. And it also illustrates a really huge emotional distance between the parents and their children, whereby, you come off like such a great mom, but then your children hold completely different opinions of you in that aspect. Dr. Caro, I don't know what you think about these themes before
Yeah.
we jump into some of the questions that we have.
Yeah, and I think this is where now we begin to see that we are looking at a system issue. It is very easy for us to just say, what did the dad do? What did the mom do? We are looking at a bigger issue than just what is happening in the school. And I mean that what is happening at home. And because I teach at the university in the School of Education, so I am so immersed into the education system as well as being in this therapy space, and I get to go out there and assess students who are on teaching practice. And that's when you see the reality. We can say, oh, this is in the UK, it's this different in our country. And I think somebody in one of the questions asked, how is this relevant for us? And that's one of the reasons we want to have this conversation, that this is actually relevant for us. What I see out there, when it comes to the school system, it's tired teachers. They are overwhelmed. They are trying to manage numbers. They're trying to meet targets. And yet we are asking them to be more than educators in a broken system already. The system is broken outside. The system is broken within the school. And so to just take a moment and realize how difficult it is to be a teacher in this day and age, because there's so much that is expected out of us. And then you go to so most of the time, the teachers push the responsibility back to parents. So on the one hand, you hear teachers complaining about their tiredness and overwork. Then on the other hand, when you talk to teachers, there's just that expectation of, but you're the one with the child in the school. Why don't you sort it out? I'm tired of this child being suspended all the time. You go and deal with it. And there is just such an expectation. And sometimes it comes with a little bit of arrogance that, you know what, we are paying the money. All this money we are paying, just sort it out. Okay. So I find there's a lot of animosity between teachers and parents in the school system. And guess who loses out when we are always blaming one another? Guess who slips through the cracks? It's our children. And I think for me, it's an invitation, even as part of this community that we are creating, to be able to step back as teachers, to step back and try to fit yourself into the shoes of the parents. And parents, to try to fit yourself in the shoes of let's try and hear each other. Let's try and see what it means to be in this space and to be in this other space, because we need each other. Let's stop the blame game and let's really begin to see how can we collaborate. So that's tiredness of teachers. And then, especially in the actual movie itself, I keep saying movie. Wangari keeps correcting me. It's not a movie, it's a series. It just tells you the generational difference. Please let me just say movie, because that comes easier.
Feel free. Feel free.
Permission granted. So there is that. And I think there's an invitation for us to really, they were trying to manage a tragedy and they were being asked to offer emotional support. They had limited tools. Okay. So it's time to just acknowledge that. A lot of the conversations we'll have in this space is to really, it's acknowledgement conversation. Then we see Jade, the friend to, what's her name, Marie, the girl who was murdered, Katie, okay? Her friend, got into a fight because of course she's grieving and all that, and she hit this boy and she was pulled aside, and this I think the teacher is talking to her and saying, I think you're going through a lot. We need to get you to talk to someone. And the first thing she says, not another shrink. So it just reflects how our children are tired. Here, it may not be a shrink. It may be, let me take you to talk to your aunt. There's a sense of tiredness of, don't send me to another adult. There's just a desire to have, and we are not saying you don't send them to adults, because we really do need to come together as a community. But the quick sending them to someone to fix them is not working well, because they need a connection with that one stable adult in their lives. And so those interventions sometimes just feel so plastic, so impersonal for the kids. And then we also see, and I think I've just seen a peak of some of those conversations here. We just see everyday school dynamics. We see bullying happening. Teachers are overwhelmed. There's lack of control. But it really just reflects what we experience in our schools, whether it's in the public schools, whether it's in the private schools. The structures that are there are not enough. They are not strong enough to support children in this day and age. And so for us in our different spaces, what is it that we can do? I think the other thing that really stands out here is that disconnect. You remember the way the boy, what's his name? The son to
Police officer.
the police officer is trying to rescue this poor guy who is trying to do investigations. And he's the one who reveals all these things that were really going on. There's a lot of coded language. And I would just, a love emoji means so many things. The red one means love, I think pure love or whatever love, innocent love. Purple, I'm just gonna say it here because it came out, So he says purple means I'm horny. Yellow means I'm interested. Are you interested? Pink means I'm interested, but not in sex. Orange says you're going to be fine. And that was such a shocker because he was like, all that from just one emoji, just the different colors. So it just speaks into how different and how disconnected we are in this space. And then finally, it's Adam, the boy called Adam. He tells his dad, you call everyone son, but not me. And this is a very deeply telling moment of the emotional distance that even this dad has. How many times do our children sometimes say, you treat other children better than you treat me? So I'm saying all this as I invite us to do what? To breathe in and out. Wangari, the questions, and I know again many conversations are on.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Caro. In fact, I was looking at all the questions coming in, and I just wanted to start by assuring you guys that we are definitely going to have to do more of these just to get into everything that is really coming up. And we're going to have one of the coaches share a link for you to just put down your contact in case you want to continue these conversations for whatever it is that is not answered here at the moment. But we do already have some questions that had been put in as they are registering. And the first question here is, so then how do we support our teenagers to succeed?
Good question. How do we support? So these are questions Wangari is reading from those who had already submitted their questions. And then we have the questions that you have here. So we are going to try and balance them out. How do we support our children to succeed? I think is to understand what children really need, and especially in this day and age. And I think I like to use the 4 S's by Dr. Dan Siegel, who talks about children needing the 4 S's, children needing to be seen, to feel safe, to feel soothed, so that now they feel a sense of security. A child who is seen, do you really see me? Do you really see me for who I am? Do you see me with my struggles? Do you see me as someone who is looking to connect? Do you see me beyond my misbehavior? Okay. Soothing is basically just a sense of soothing with your words, soothing psychologically, soothing physically. Do your words soothe or do they trigger? Do they antagonize? So just checking yourself and figuring out, what do your words actually end up doing? What do your actions end up doing? Safe, seen, soothe. So seen and soothe and safe. Safe is just a sense of safety. Again, emotional safety, physical safety. And if a child experiences as that sense, those 3 S's, then they are likely to be successful. Why? Because they're feeling secure, because they're feeling confident, because they're feeling really, really seen. In terms of tools, again, we will repeat some of those tools. And one is just to really be able to find time to connect with our children. I'm really asking us also in the chat to answer these questions, because really for us, like I said, a big one on us is co-creation as a community. And we want to hear, what are your thoughts? How do you support children to succeed? Wangari?
All right. I think, and that's a big thing where we stay in Starry Camp, that if we are expecting our children to succeed, have we set them up for success? Because it really calls to us as parents to set up our children to succeed and not just to expect them to succeed. When we talk about the farmer concept, you cannot just throw maize to the farm and expect a bountiful harvest. Yeah. The next question, which I guess is coming up a lot because of the coded language, is the fact that using one emoji, a sexual message can be quickly portrayed between two teenagers. Then, Dr. Carol, does this mean teenagers should be having relationships? Should they? Should they not? And you know how direct we are with these kinds of questions. We want a yes or no. Sometimes we want a yes or no answer. Should they be in relationships or not?
Yeah,
But what
yeah.
do you think, Dr. Carol? Yeah.
I'll look those that question with should we give them phones? Should they be in relation?
Mm-hmm.
We should we allow them to go to the mall? Should we? There's all those and we, or literally like what you said earlier. We expect a yes or no. I think it's to invite us to ask again, what kind of conversations are we having with them? What are we training them? What have you talked about relationships? The extent to which your child is ready really depends on the kind of environment that you are creating for conversations. Sometimes it may not be with you because it's not every time that you're the one to do it. So figure out in your community of stable adults, people who are speaking the same language and similar values. Okay, what kind of conversations are you having around relationships? Then you're asking them as well, what's their view of relationships? So having all those conversations then puts you in a position, okay, to be able to now open yourself up and say, this child, or now they will come and tell you, it's not like now this child is ready, now go and have a relationship. It would happen automatically. 13, 14, 15, they'll start liking people, and that's just opportunity for conversations. What kind and it, that also has to be laced with your values. Okay, your values come in place. In fact, without our clarity of values around these things, whether it's social media and phones and relationships, then we cannot have these conversations. Where do we get our values? From different places, from the communities that we are in. Sometimes we carry them down from what it is that we have learned from our parents that was good. And we also, in our sessions, we help you clarify those values so that you're clear, this is what I want to teach my child, and this is how we are going to teach them.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Kari. It's very interesting. Just this morning, I had a conversation with my daughter where she told me all her friends are on TikTok, all her cousins are on TikTok, and she's the only one who isn't. And it was a moment of like, how can you do this to me? And my answer to her was, I bet they have already talked to their parents and their parents feel they are ready to be on TikTok. So me and you, we need to talk some more so that I can understand if you are ready to be on TikTok. And sometimes sometimes we feel put against the wall, right? You like you said, being ready is a spectrum. My child could be ready and yours isn't, and they're the same age. And so maybe again, just to remind us not to be afraid to reiterate that there are some conversations that we need to have, or there are some steps that need to be taken before we are ready to do certain things that other children might be seeming ready for. So another question, Dr. Kara, I guess maybe a two-part question, is two things, yeah? A lot of things that came out here is about how much teenagers need to be validated by their peers. And on the other hand, they hate authority. So maybe let's just, what is in the mind of a teenager? Why is it that they need validation from their friends and to hate the grown-ups? What is going on there?
Yeah, and I mean, this is when to begin to look at the stage that they are in, and different people have talked about seeking identity, finding their own place. The fact that this is a very important stage, because if they don't manage through this, then they'll be stuck at some point. They'll not be able to have their own sense of self-confidence and identity. And I think to just acknowledge and accept the fact that seeking individuality, seeking identity is part of growing. And if we don't allow space for that, then the pushback will come. We also need validation as adults. Sometimes we place things on those kids, but when you really look at ourselves, we also need validation. It's just that for teenagers, it's a bit on steroids because there's a sense with the dopamine, they get a dopamine hit, which is higher. You know, dopamine is the feel-good chemical that causes us to repeat things because it's been produced and after you've done something. So there's also dopamine, a lot more dopamine that is produced when they are with their peers, and it makes them feel good. It makes them feel connected. It gives them a sense of social status, okay? And it's important for us to acknowledge that. After having acknowledged, what now do we do? Most of the time we fight that. In fact, we make comments like, you're just listening to your friends as if it is something that is very wrong. It's coming from a place of understanding and compassion, and understand that there's no one else they want to listen to at this time. But then, how do I help them navigate that so that I still remain that person of influence? I will still go back. If there's one tool that I would like us to get out of here, it's conscious connection. When our children are connected to us, they respond to us better. They listen to us better. If we do things from a place of, they do things from a place of, if we do things from a place of connection, you'll be surprised at some of the things that I usually say, I get away telling my son to do, then I'm like, he actually did that, you know. And we've had those moments when they are so cooperative, you know. So it's important for us to go back again to that space of consciously connecting and not resist the need for validation.
Yeah. You know, in fact, when you were talking about validation, I was just thinking, I know a really big part, or we adults also need validation, is that's why that phrase, but Nani's parents let them, works so well on us. It's because even as parents, we want to be validated as the best mom or the coolest mom or the coolest dad, you know. Even sometimes when it goes against the values that we have set up, sometimes we have that internal struggle where we also really want our kids to love and accept us. And and when you said about just their peers, you know, there's something we've ever talked about in one of our sessions whereby, you know, sometimes your child's friends might not have a stable adult in their life. And so it is maybe just through that friendship that they get to engage with a stable adult who can guide them in certain ways. So sometimes maybe we are not so quick to cut off that bad friend, but instead to again just continue to bring them into these conversations and conscious connection, as you keep reminding us, Dr. Caro. And I guess another question that came up a lot with a lot of parents is, how do I know if my teenager is being bullied? Okay, and if they are, what do I do? And I know the film is based on the UK, but here in Kenya, where can I get support when my child has been maybe has gone through some cyberbullying or just actual bullying in their spaces?
Yeah. And again, because it's happening within the school system and the school community, it is us as parents to work with the school system to come up with policies that help. So I know I work with several schools and they have pretty good policies on what to do. This is what bullying is. They have bullying awareness weeks and all that. So it's if that is something that is not happening in your school, again, it's really, we have to take the initiative as parents to be able to come together, whether it's through the PTA or whatever else. And I know, yes, we don't have time and all that, but just remember what it is, the price that we are paying for not getting into that. So I would really like us to look at every sort of solution that we're having here from, first of all, a systemic perspective and a working together perspective, but then also, how do you know your child is being bullied? I believe that through conscious connection and just having conversations with your child, eventually they are going to open up. That's number one. Number two, if you're suspecting it, go breathe in and out, remove all the negativity out of that conversation and come and let them know, you know, I have noticed 1, 2, 3, is there anything going on? And if they shut down at that point, you're like, that's okay, we'll come back to this conversation later. When our children shut down, when we are having conversations, let it be at that point, but tell them we'll come back to this conversation when you're ready. Because what we do is, when they shut down, we start poking, okay, because we are triggered. And so, and one of the things, you know, and I would encourage, we also give you resources. There's a book I'm reading right now that's called 10 to 24. 10 to 24. And it's talking about how to motivate young people between that age. And one of the things that really comes out, probably we've heard about it, is that our children, we say one thing and we really mean what we are saying, but our children hear a totally different thing. And that's where the argument begins, okay? You're genuine, you want to say what it is you want to say. Your child, and during that stage, is just hearing disrespect, being disregarded, being judged, and all that. And that's what also happened in this conversation and in this episode too, when Adam is trying to explain to the dad about all these emojis. Dad is not hearing, he's just like, you mean you watch the Matrix? Like, it's a totally off. I'm trying to help you here. You're just seeing the bad things that I have done. So we jump in because we get triggered. So it's just to invite us to a place of when they open up, we listen. Okay, we listen. Don't jump in. You don't get overly triggered. And having that one-on-one connection helps us to begin to understand them better. I think someone asked, can we really know our children? And I think it's important to ask that question because, again, we look at the word know as an end. Okay, if we look at knowing as a process, through conscious connection, knowing that you'll never fully know this child, but allowing yourself a space of curiosity, okay, just a place of curiosity of getting to know this child over time, then you release yourself the need to know your child. And you open yourself to the possibility of being curious and learning about this child. Wangari, what I think we should do before we get into those questions is finish. If that's okay, now I'm taking
no problem.
Consideration so that we can finish the conversation and then now we can tackle the answer.
No problem. Yeah, we could go back to the things that are being shared in the chat box. But I just think also I'm also just scanning through some of the things that are coming up. And I think some other thing that's just coming up with the conversation around bullying is, and I think you also said it, but sometimes we forget that as parents, because we are unable to stay calm when our children are telling us certain things, it stops them from telling us things that are important. For example, a child being bullied at school because they are afraid that your first instinct will be to go to the headmaster and create this huge scene. They are afraid to tell you because they are afraid of how you will react to this thing that they are already going through. And again, and Halima has pointed that out in the chat box, saying where it really calls for us to be calm in those moments where we are expecting our children to come to us with their problems, with their honesty of what's going on. Now, Dr. Caro, a quick question just to close off episode 2. Just a quick one for all those here who are wondering. How do I stay current with these emoji languages and these code words for movies? How do I keep up? How do I keep up? How do I know how to use those cool words?
Just stop trying to. Just stop trying to keep up. Don't even try, like what good will it do? If I'm connecting with my child, those conversations will flow. And I didn't need to know about the incel culture and the red pill bros that just came out from a conversation. I didn't need to know that. It came out in a conversation I asked because I was preparing for this. But and I think there is a fear, because sometimes we have all these things that are shared in our WhatsApp spaces, on our social media spaces, of all these things that this is what it means. When your child says this is what it means. And then we are resharing and we are resharing. What we are doing is that we are resharing anxiety because it's helping us see just how much we don't know. So I'm like, why do you want to know? I mean, we had our own way of talking when we were young, and we didn't want our parents to be part of it. It was just a cool thing to belong. Okay, so let's stop having this formal. It's not a formal. Just connect with your child. Whatever needs to come out will come out.
Yeah. Dr. Caro, I work a lot with kids, and let me tell you what the teenagers say. When you're trying too hard to get with it, it's very cringe. In fact, let me teach you, and it's very cringe. It's very cringe when you're trying. In fact, it limits the connection because now you're trying too hard, And sometimes handling teenagers is like disarming a bomb. you touch the wrong part and everything goes up in flames. So sometimes it's even with those coded languages, you use one word wrong. And now the whole conversation has really exploded. But that's amazing. Thank you so much for that answer, that we can just release that need to understand everything. Let's quickly just jump into the third episode. Uh, sorry. Aha. The third episode was called The Psychologist. This was the episode where he gets to sit down with a psychologist. And for me, first of all, as somebody who works in this mental health space, this episode was shocking and a real reality of sometimes what happens even when you're going to interact with these kids. They really reveal a side of them that even their parents would not believe that that is their child. The way he spoke, and it's been mentioned a lot in the comment box, the way he carried himself in front of her, it really brought up. And the themes that came up for us as Stawi Camp is, first of all, a dangerous online culture that is very easy for our kids to get absorbed into, a distorted image of masculinity, red pill bros stories and everything there. And there's also the risk of silence. And what does we mean by the risk of silence? Just because you don't talk to your child does not mean that there's not anything going on with them. Just we cannot silence these things away. These kids are growing up and these things completely are showing up every day. And the last one was lack of digital oversight. I mean, I guess also with not even understanding their language, it's very hard to really oversee their communications, because sometimes you're reading the messages but not even understanding what communication is going on. And then again, all those incel groups that are teaching certain kids certain belief systems that are so far apart. And those themes really did come up for us. Dr. Caro, maybe something quick over about those themes before we jump into the questions that had been submitted in according
Yeah.
to the third episode. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll just let you ask the questions, but just emphasize on the reality of the toxic, distorted masculinity. And we see those very, this comments. Sometimes you just come across a comment that says, fear women. You know, people really like that phrase, fear women. And then there is all this negative thing. So there was a sense of, just toxicity and looking down upon the psychologist and positioning himself as a good guy for dating a vulnerable girl. There's the 80% of women date 20% of men. So that means you have to do cringe things to be able to get those men. That for me, this whole incel, red pill, and all that, I learned about it during this when I was preparing. What are some of the questions around that, Wangari?
Yeah, so we have a bunch of questions to really get into. And I think just to tie into what's been going on here in our country is, I guess these conversations, they are really what come up when we talk about femicide, what's going on with the femicide crisis in our country. It's some of those themes that are on this episode that completely speak into it. And I guess something that comes up with maybe seeing him show a completely different side to the psychologist is then, how do I get my child to open up to me so that I can see them? Yeah.
And I think we've said that over and over again, conscious connection in how we react to them. Don't keep poking. In fact, just leave the child. If they shut down, please leave them, because it's our own need to be approved and validated that causes us to keep poking, because you want to feel good about winning that space. So I think just step back and look at yourself also and see what's going on with me when they shut down. But conscious connection is the one tool that I would like us to take out of here, because it's the foundation for everything else that happens when we are raising our teenagers.
All right. Thank you so much. Another question here is, so how safe is social media? And how can I monitor it, being that I don't know much about social media, especially?
Yeah, I think, again, conversations. Okay, now we know that social media has its positives and negatives. We don't even want to unpack that because we know how much it's because of social media that we are here, you know. So there's a lot that, you know, we are staying connected and everything, but it also has its dark sides, as we see again in the movie or in the series. So I think it's to really learn how to have one of the things that when I talk about social media, I talk about what we call share tactics versus scare tactics. And I think that is the same for all conversations, even about drugs and everything. We always go for the scare tactics. This is what will happen to you. How about we learn together? We learn together what this is. You know, the other day, a parent just wrote me a long email to ask me, my child wants to be on what is this one for disappearing, Snapchat. You can guess my the way I describe this thing. So yes, on Snapchat, what should I do? And you know, it was a good conversation to start having of why does he want to be on Snapchat? These are the pros. So having a conversation with him about this is what I know about Snapchat. What do you know about Snapchat? What are you getting out of it? And then you come up with depending on the age appropriateness, depending on your values, again, clarity of your values, then you come up with a rule, okay, with rules about how to use it, when to use it. It's still open to me, okay? I have to access it. If I notice you slacking in other spaces, then this thing comes off. You see, those conversations we must have. And we can't have those conversations in the intense heat of the moment. When I'm connecting to my child, they become so cooperative. So please, let's go back again. Through conscious connection. That becomes my answer for pretty much everything. God.
Amazing, Dr. Caro. So I mean, I have a question here that I'd like to tie to something I'm reading in the comments right now, and I also would really like to touch on it as a coach. Right? Somebody here asked. I've been wondering, did the psychologist here have any responsibility in the support and rehabilitation of Jamie? But it's the comment that they finish with where they say something about how she terminated their sessions did not sit right with me. So as a coach, in fact, I just wanted to just point out that sometimes I think, and I think it goes back to what we said about teachers and parents. Sometimes we expect a lot of these people who are coming in to support, right? Like this lady was definitely not in a safe environment. I would like to say, for example, like if I showed up for a coaching session and it felt like the child was about to beat me, I'm just human. I might also be afraid to show up again. Not everybody would be able, and I think somebody said that in the comment, not all the teachers are equipped to support in certain ways, you know. And so maybe you can touch on that, right? Is it a possibility to reach out for help and then somebody to be like, maybe they are not able to offer the help they need? And this ties to one of the questions that was submitted that's asking about what's normal behavior, you know, because some of the things that showed up in the episode were almost like, did they not see this abnormal behavior? So what's normal behavior for teenagers?
Yeah, I think I like what Grace says here about that question. Her role at that point was to determine if he understood the gravity of the offense and if he was fit to stand trial. She had a very specific role in that whole space, and she actually got her answers. Okay, there is space for someone else to come and actually offer psychological support for his mental health and mental wellness. So I think it's also to just discover the different categories of these helpers and what it is they can do. Like someone is saying here, not all teachers are equipped to do that. I don't know what your first question was. I think I lost it because I got drawn to this conversation.
It's the same one. It's okay.
But,
yeah.
Yeah. But what's normal? You know, again, it's kind of hard. You know, normal is on a spectrum. You know, our mental health is on a spectrum. So we want to be able to know that our children are sleeping well, have a good diet, we are connecting with them, and they will still struggle. I think to summarize that answer is look at two things: the intensity of the behavior and the frequency of it. Those are the two things that we really look out for, even in mental health issues. How often is it happening and how intense is it? So that means, again, there is a level of knowing your child, not to know your child, but knowing and understanding your child to be able to know at what point then is this intense and this frequent. Then we can involve other people.
All right. I think this next question was really coming from a parent who feels like maybe some mistakes were already made along the way. And so the question that they're asking is then, if my relationship with my teenager has already been messed up, how do I repair it? And I think I'd like to add on to that, Dr. Carol. How can Stawi Camp help in such a situation? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So one is that you are still, remember again what we say, that even with the most emotionally distant father, this boy somehow reached out in crisis. They still crave our connection. So I think that's the first thing we need to remember, that they still crave our connection. But then it's to step back as parents and as a parent and ask yourself, okay, where is this coming from? Self-awareness is a big part of the conversations that we have. So from a very conscious place, we say, unless you are fulfilled, you use it, your children to complete you, you do all these things while unaware that you're doing so. So at Stawi, we help you go inward and begin to look at yourself and ask yourself, how did I get here? Even before you start saying, how can I reconnect and repair? It's really, how did I get here? It's important to know the path that got you there. It could be your childhood trauma. It could be things that you're going on. It could be the triggers, your belief systems and all that. So inviting you to a place of more self-awareness then helps you begin to now connect with your child better and now begin to have those, again, one-on-one connections, conscious connections, to be able to really connect with this child. So I think the bigger message here for me, it is possible and you have time. However far down the line you have gone. Why? Because like I say, they crave connection, but two, the part of the brain that is responsible for empathy, decision making, and all that is still far along the way. I mean, that it will mature at age 25 or beyond. So for us to know that we still have time, then it helps us to think about, where do I start? Start with your own healing, with your own self-awareness. And that's what we are all about at Stawi, with the programs and the conversations that we have here. You have time.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Caro. I just want to jump into the fourth episode, if that's okay. And then I would also like to request, I can see in the chat box now we have a commentary running. That's amazing. Please keep that going. If you have any burning questions, just hold on to them. We're going to prompt you to just now put them all into the chat box so that we can see how many of those we can be able to answer. Now, episode 4, the final episode, and this was and this was around the family conversation. This episode, I think a really big highlight of the episode was just the parents getting to unpack, what did we do wrong? How did one child turn out this way and the other one turn out that way? And the themes that stood out for us as Stawi Camp were, for example, exactly that: guilt and regret. What should I have done? Unresolved childhood trauma. The dad said that his dad beat him a lot and he tried his best not to beat his child, but somehow that trauma still found a way to present itself. Focusing our children on activities, but then we still end up just finding them disappearing into these screens, the relentless struggle of this digital age. There's also a false sense of safety. Sometimes we believe that just because our children are at home, they're in their rooms, they're being quiet, it equals that they are emotionally safe or digitally being safe. We need to really release that false sense of safety. There's also a really big conversation coming up on, how do we parent girls versus boys? How is it that this boy was out so late at night, and there were no questions asked? Do we focus more on safety when it comes to girls and not to boys? And the final theme that really came up for us is, parenting isn't a one size fits all approach, right? Because even with the same parents, siblings always show up differently. So Dr. Caro, just a quick overview. What do you think about these themes just before we jump into the questions?
I think they are quite self-explanatory, just
Mhm.
a place, and it was one of the heaviest for me, the heaviest episode. So I think let's just soak in the themes as we see them, as we now invite the questions. Is that okay?
Right. That's okay. So, one of the questions that came up here is then how do I balance love and discipline as a parent? Because you're either giving too much love or giving too much discipline. How can they balance?
And I think that's another thing is sometimes we I don't know what balance is for me, to be honest. I don't know what we really mean when we say balance, because every time I think of balance, I think of being at one point at time. It just happens in that moment. Okay. So it's almost unattainable to have balance. And I think we need to release that concept of balance and say, you know what? I'm going to show up fully. All right. And sometimes I will make mistakes and sometimes I will not. But there is that real question, and I don't want us to lose out of it, is how do I show up in maybe moments of discipline, and when the discipline space is over, because we think discipline is just that one thing we do, that we are still connected through conscious connections, through really understanding what discipline is. And when you think about the broader perspective of discipline, love is in there. Okay, love is in there. Creating an environment to connect with your child is actually part of discipline. And I want us to also change our view. We have a 5-part series called Conscious Discipline. And we really unpack what discipline is, because discipline is everything else that you do to create a conducive environment for your child to learn something. So you don't need to balance love and discipline. In the whole context of discipline, you're connecting with your child, you're working on yourself, you are identifying what the skills gap are, you're creating opportunity to train in those skills gap, you are setting your child up for success, creating spaces where they can be successful, you are encouraging them, you are also giving consequences, because we confuse consequences and discipline. You're also giving consequences, you're taking away privilege, you are getting them to experience the pain of their actions, okay, in whatever way or fashion that works for you and your values. Therefore, looking at it from a bigger perspective, then you realize you can actually do all those things from a place of intentionality, from a place of being equipped. You don't have to worry about balancing.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Caro. I guess another question that came up with this segment is, what do I do with unresolved trauma? Jamie's dad talked about how he grew up. And so what about me? What do I do about how I grew up and the things that I wouldn't want to pass on to my kids?
Yeah, and that's where we decide the extent and the extreme of it, and decide, I want to seek professional help, I want to see a therapist, a coach, a counselor, I want to be in a community where I can share my experiences. I think we need to understand that we get broken in relationships, but we also heal in relationships. So again, it's seeking out those relationships that will help you. And of course, our commercial plug here is we have very specific tools that help support you process and resolve childhood trauma, so that you are able to show up with your child in a way that is wholesome and conscious.
Right. I guess another big question that really I think any person can ask themselves once they watch this show is, what could they have done differently? What could they have changed about events that led up to this big blowout?
Yeah. We one of the things we say in Stawi is resilient children have self-aware parents. We are very big on self-awareness. We are very big on working on yourself. We are very big on looking at, when we've talked about these things, and probably we've pulled out some of the things they could have done differently. Find spaces for healing, connect with your child, okay? Find spaces and communities where you can actually work with someone one-on-one to help you. The question is, what could they have done differently? Yes. I think I'm still answering that. I was confusing it with the resolved childhood trauma space. I think be more intentional. We talk about being a farmer parent in our space. And one of the things, such a reality that we have is that even with a farmer, you don't have 100% control over the harvest, but you can do a lot to make sure your harvest turns a certain way. So I think what they could have done differently for me is take a step back and look at themselves and see what is it that I'm doing, bringing into this child's piece. Because from a place of self-awareness, you're able to identify what it is was going on with your child. You're able to put limits and routines and schedules and systems in place and consequences and follow through with those consequences because you're not afraid of your child's pushback. You don't take personally misbehavior, so working on ourselves really positions us to be that stable adult that our child needs, but also opening ourselves up to the fact that we'll still make mistakes and we will still mess up. I would like to really hear that answer from also the community that we have here. What do you think they should have done differently? I know there are many
Yes, please
conversations.
put it in the chat box. What do you think that they should have done differently? And we can be able to unpack that a little bit more. Believe it or not, Dr. Caro, we have gone through all the questions that had been submitted before that we have summarized. So we're just gonna walk through the chat and see some of the things that are coming up for people there. I had seen a conversation here where they talked about Nancy said,
As you're doing that, Wangari, could you slide to the next slide? We have it
yes.
for a while and then we put everything down so that we see each other even better. Uh-huh.
All right. So I want before I go to the next slide, maybe let me just give it an explanation. So the next slide is the QR code that you can use to sign up for our other programs, our other conversations. Maybe there's a question here that you'd like to be unpacked more in depth. This is a really great place to give us feedback on how this conversation was like for you. What other conversations would you like us to have? And would you be able to continue to join us? So please scan the QR code, as a link will also be shared in the chat box in case you're unable to scan the QR code. I'd like just to request one of the Stowie coaches to paste the link to this form. And I'm going to keep it up just for a few seconds as we are running through the initial questions. So I think I wanted to really highlight a conversation here that has had so many sub chats. I think it's maybe because it's a very heated one, right? And I think it really goes back to the reaction of the psychologist who came to see Jamie. And Mongi had said, did the psychologist sorry, I think we had already read about the way she terminated the sessions that didn't sit well with a lot of people. So I think there's a comment where somebody has requested that we unpack this further, and the conversation is really going on, and where they're asking, is this the brokenness of the system whereby each person is just passing the baton to the next person but really not going beyond, like what you said, right? Her job had been just to do a discovery, but shouldn't she have gone a step further, or just to leave him there and wait for the next person to take over? Yes, Dr. Carol.
Yeah, I think also the whole purpose of the movie, they had also their own, there's something they wanted to communicate there, and that's the only way they could have. I will say that, what, that's what she came to do. Okay. And we don't know what in that whole system, what other support he was having. So I'm not sure how else to say that, but I think that for the purpose, for the goal of the movie, she accomplished.
Yeah.
Maybe we are feeling uncomfortable because of how it ended, and
Mm.
we are hoping that there were also mental health experts that were there to support him to be able to process.
Yeah.
Definitely, there's a lot of brokenness in that young man, and he does need support.
All right, thank you so much. And there's another conversation here that comes up where they talk about the fact that he was pushed to play football, yet he seemed to really enjoy art. And I think this really highlights
Yeah.
something about how, as parents, we want our kids to do activities, but we want them to do the activities we like, not what they want to do. Let's talk about that for a second, Dr. Cairo.
Yeah, I think there's just that narrative. And I guess it comes from, again, that quote that we like to use, unless you are fulfilled, you'll use your children to complete you. So, and I think the conversation that's going on here is, drawing wasn't a manly enough activity. So he pushed him to
Mhm.
footy, calls it footy or football, and other sports that maybe to bring out the manliness in him, according to him. And I think it's important for us to really acknowledge and appreciate, because our children actually, and there's a statement, I hope I will get it. There's something that the lady detective said, that children thrive when they are allowed to do something that they enjoy. And I am sure that's paraphrasing. So when we're allowing our children to thrive to do something that they're enjoying, that is also connected to resilience, to the ability to say no, to the ability to feel good about themselves. So it's an invitation for us as parents to just check ourselves and see what are these things we are using our children to complete us.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Caro. I want to read a comment that Shalom has shared here in the chat box. I think it's an amazing comment where she says, for some reason, the movie doesn't show that the family has any support systems, e.g., other families, so we can only speculate. Here's the bit they should have had: community around them and as a family, and not just the nosy neighbor. And I think it's great for her to highlight that maybe that's an aspect of the movie that we weren't shown. But I would also like to just empathize with the fact that it might be a reality for certain families that they do not have those great support systems as we expect, or that just for other situations, economical situations or whatever, those children don't have access to the kind of mental support that we would like. Yeah, so maybe Dr. Caro, what would you like to say about that as we continue going through the comments?
I don't even want to add anything to that, because the reality
Mm-hmm.
is we do thrive in community. It takes a village, and yes, there were nosy neighbors, but we didn't see community. It could have helped, I'm sure, in one way or another.
All right. Another comment here says that our children's outcomes and successes are influenced significantly by the environments outside of even us and our homes as well. I think it's a really call for us to factor in other things that are going on, and just a sobering reminder that um, this movie is based in a different country that maybe has different systems and different ideologies, and maybe so that we are not also perpetrating scare tactics.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess it's really important to just highlight, hey, this was a case study, and maybe not just our everyday reality as it seems to be coming up here in the chat box. Um, Another question is, somebody here says maybe they could have spent more time and invested more effort in getting to know their son, what school is really like, how his relationships with friends and peers are working out. This is a huge opener of understanding for some of these crazy teen dynamics. And I've also seen some other questions talking about how some of the reflective questions that you've mentioned that we could be asking our teenagers. And I think it ties down to these, right? What are some of those conversation starters? Just maybe if you can give us one or two that we can use with our teenagers so that we can get to know more deeper things about them and what's going on in their lives.
I really try to stay away from scripts because it really helps to be as natural as possible. So, from a place of connection, how best can you speak to your child? I have discovered this. What do you think about this? I'm really just groping here, because I really try not to do the scripts, although sometimes parents really want those things, but sometimes they just don't connect with who you are as a person, with your personality, with your culture. But if you are consciously connecting, it really does help to be able to just have a regular, natural conversation. Sometimes we start saying things in a way that is scripted, and our kids just see right through us. So I know I may have a different answer from maybe what you would have to Wangari, what were some of the things you would suggest, and also taking it back to our community, our study community here. What are some of the conversation starters that you use so that we can borrow from you, we can learn from you, or we can modify?
Amazing. Dr. Kari, thanks so much for throwing it back at me. But I think for me, I think the first and the most important thing is no matter how many questions we give as a guide, the biggest thing is these things you have to have very low expectations. Sometimes you have all the right questions and now you expect that the answers and the sharing will flow immediately. Yet a lot of these things take time. You could even just pick simple questions as tell me about your day, and you could ask it every single day getting a generic answer until one day when you ask and they genuinely be like, this happened to me and this happened to me and this is where I would need some support. So I guess that would be my answer. Whatever question you would like to ask, just manage your expectations, and sometimes imagine sometimes they also don't have a lot going on. Sometimes they're just sometimes the things are just
Have
normal.
the words to articulate what is going on, and that's where also just presence, your own presence, can really
Yes. I see a quick question here saying, how do we, and I think maybe we've touched on it, but I'd just like to read it out. How do we support our children to make good decisions, especially as they are transitioning from into young adulthood? And I guess this is when they're getting to a place where they don't need us to approve, when they have more control. How do we support their decisions?
um I think it's more being more of a consultant. I was trying to see if support is what we want to do, but that's probably what we want to do. I was just trying to think, is there another word that we can use there? But looking at yourself from a place of a consultant and asking those open-ended questions, and then there are spaces where you will just allow them to experience the consequence of the actions that they do. I think you have to be clear about what you can stand as a parent, your threshold, okay, what you can stand. I was talking to a friend of mine who was saying, you know what, me, I don't have the threshold to say, let my child be thrown in jail. I don't have it. So me, I'm going to rescue them in that space, okay? So again, it's very, very individual, all right? There are some parents who, hardcore. They'll be like, yeah, let him experience jail cell for a night and come back. So I think it's again coming back to you. What is your threshold? What is the long-term lesson you are trying to teach? To what extent can you allow them experience the consequences of the choices that they make? And to what extent can you say no? Give the consequences, because you're like, if you don't do this, then you won't then you don't get this, because you still have some level of control, and I don't like to use that word, but control over some of the things that they they need from you. But ultimately, when they begin to get into adulthood, it's just continuing to keep the connection going and to listen more and to allow them to make a lot more decisions while you step back. I don't think any of this is possible if you're not working on yourself. I'll come back to that. It's not possible if you're not working on yourself, if you're not working on your insecurities, if you're not working on the fears and the anxieties that you have, and if you're not learning to release them in a way that is very intentional and practical.
So I guess somebody here is asking us to clarify or maybe to say a little more about what we mean by conscious connection. And I think after that we're just going to take maybe two, three more questions. Unfortunately, as we come to an end, Dr. Kara, as you're telling us a little bit more about what conscious connection means, I'm going to share the QR code one last time and the link to just join us for more deeper conversations just like these ones where we unpack deeper themes around parenting, around mental health. Please feel free to sign up, take our contacts. They'll all be available in the chat box. Over to you, Dr. Carol.
And I think someone has answered here. Emily, conscious connection is being fully present. You can actually see it in their eyes, their body, that they can feel you when sitting quietly with your child, playing with your child, how you nod, look into their eyes, how you listen, how you respond, etc. And this can be at whatever age. It's really, thank you, Emily. It's really about carving out time to connect with your child, where it's really about them and the activity that they enjoy. And I will emphasize, a 2-year-old will enjoy it a 19-year-old will enjoy it, as long as you figure out what it is that works for you. And what in that moment, you really are fully present, and fully present meaning not distractions, and just interested in what it is that they are doing. What happens with conscious connection is that you will start, it will be difficult, it will be sort of not authentic because you are scheduling it, you're making it work, but over time it becomes natural, where your child just comes to you and you hang out and you have conversations. But just remember being fully present. There are two aspects to conscious connection, because there's that connecting with your child, but there is also learning how to connect with yourself. Again, back to self-awareness. We cannot connect effectively with your children if you don't learn to connect with yourself, to enjoy your own company, to be okay with the emotions, to be okay with the negative emotions, and learning how to process them yourselves. It's not something that we are skilled in, but that's a very core aspect of conscious connection, learning to connect with yourself. Again, inviting you to this space to be able to get those tools, because for me, that just underlies everything that will help us in influencing our children in a way that is positive.
Thank you so much, Dr. Caro. I want to just go to the next slide. This slide has our contacts here at Starry Camp for Wellbeing, how you can reach us, the different ways that you can reach us on the social media, our email, our website, our phone number. I want to just take some time to say thank you to all the over 130 of you who joined us in this amazing conversation. I know we've not answered all your questions. I know we've not calmed all your concerns, but I just welcome you to take a breath and know that we're here. There's time to have more conversations, to unpack more things. And again, we invite you to use the link that's been shared in the chat box to give us feedback. What other things would you like us to talk about? Tell us so that we can continue to invite you, so we can continue to create space for you guys to come and join us in these conversations. Dr. Caro, final words.
Final words is almost like a vote of thanks. First of all, for the 130 plus of us here who came. And one of the things that just stood out for me is you engaged, you talked to one another, you gave each other answers. For me, that is the whole vision and mission of this community, to be able to learn from one another. So kudos to you. Please pat yourself on the shoulder and say thank you for coming. Tell yourself thank you for coming, because we are really, truly grateful. Thank you, coaches, for engaging, for the nuggets, for answering the questions. Just remember, number one, it is never too late. I think it's important for us to remember that it is never too late. You start somewhere, you start small. True conscious connection really is the fuel that keeps the relationship going, that gets us to also connect with our children and get them to even, influence and listen to us. It helps us to become the influential adults in our children's lives. Number three, we didn't dwell in it, but our children only need one stable adult for them to be resilient. So please commit to be that one stable adult. Please give us feedback in those spaces, using the link. Please do not leave without giving us feedback. It would really be important for us to also know what else it is that we need to do as conversations going forward. Thank you, everyone, and God bless. Back to you, Wangari.
Thank you so much. Just to clarify, the feedback link reads sign up link. It is both the feedback link and the link to sign up for our other programs. So that's where it is. I guess I just not to repeat what Dr. Caro said, but thank you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being intentional in your parenting. Thank you for being intentional in your connections. Thank you for showing up and just being here with us for everything. For me, myself, just to remind you, my name is Wangari. I've really enjoyed moderating this session, and I just like to leave you with a statement I like to always finish with, is that you are the perfect parent for your child. There is no better parent. There is no better person for your child. You are the perfect person. So let's just work on ourselves. Let's become more self-aware. Let's become that stable adult that each and every one of our children needs. You guys have a lovely, lovely, lovely evening. Keep just, keep taking in the deep breaths, as Dr. Carol told us. Everything is going to be fine. We are walking this journey together. And I welcome you to join our community. Join our community, and we can continue to engage in amazing